Alrighty guys, I'm back again with another how to play Japan video kind of, although this video will not really talk about playing Japan. This is mostly going to concentrate on using Andy's variant rules. The variant rules are very interesting. They give you and your opponent, of course, agree on a point limit. 50, 100, 200, 300, 400, crazy 500 like Helton and I are doing. That's a lot of points. It's a little high for me, but I prefer 400 is a nice amount of points. You can get a lot of nice things, but you can kind of figure out what you and your opponent want and go from there. Now, there are specific rules on what you can buy, when you can get it, and how much they cost. Now, of course, like everything else in these games, you could agree to different rules or change them if you want. Here's the spreadsheet from Andy, the current version of them. Let me go ahead and make this a little bigger. Yeah, let's go full screen. So basically, it's broken down into 5 or 6 sections. I want to go over each section at a time here. So the first section is the economy. Now you might think, oh, that's only for Japan. Who cares? Well, it's not. The first one is add a size 30 aircraft factory. You want more B-17s? You want more P-40s? Well, here you go, Allied players. 5 points. You can add a aircraft size 30 aircraft factory. Basically, that means you build one a day. Now, of course, if you build, if you want it to be a 1 engine, it's 5. If you want it to be a 2 engine, it's 10. If you want it to be a 4 engine, it's 20 points. Or a lot of players will let you do, you get, size 30, 1 engine, a 15, or an 8. Depends on whatever you guys want to agree on. So for 5 points, you can add a size 8 B-17 aircraft factory, which means every month you get an additional 8 B-17s. Now you might get a few more one month, you might get a few less another month. It's all random, which is why everyone likes the size 30, so you get one a day. You do this now. That's for both players, and you can get ones that are research for Japan side, ones that are in the future. Like you can get a SAM factory, so you get a fully repaired SAM R&D factory on turn 1, or any of the aircraft. There's no specific limits, other than the most you can spend is 10 points on 1 aircraft. So you can get 2 SAM factories. You can get like one size 15 B-17 and so forth. The next one down is engine factories. Pointless for the Allies because they don't have to build engines to build aircraft, but it's a possibility for Japan if you want to add some. Now, as with the aircraft factories, this can be engine factories that you don't have yet. So if you want one, the HA-43 or HA-45 or one of the jet engines, you can get them on turn 1, a size 30 for 3 points, and you start researching it right then and there. Next one up is now a lot of these are more, at least the first few are more inclined towards Japan. Like the next one is also a Japanese one. Add 50 industry to a base. Could be heavy industry, naval, shipyard, merchant shipyard, armament factories, vehicle, or even refineries if you think you want more refineries for some unknown reason. It's 1 point to add 50 points worth to any. It says to any map base. So technically, you could put more refineries in Palembang if you wanted, or any of the oil spots if you just want to be able to haul oil out of there, and so forth. Personally, you should put it all in, and if you build any of these factories, you should put it in Japan or Manchuria, because those are the hardest for the Allies to get to. Now, E4, definitely for Japan. I thought originally, add 50 oil. Japan's always, they're oil hungry. You need oil. But my latest game against Helson, he bought one of these and put it in Chongqing. Now, he also bought some refineries, put them in Chongqing. So basically, he's making supply in Chongqing, above and beyond what's already there. So that's kind of an interesting idea. Or you could put oil down in Australia. They have a fuel issue there, and that gives them a lot of fuel early in the game. Then, of course, E5 lets you add a repair yard or increase the size of one. Very important for the Allied players, as they cannot increase any industry or anything like that on their side. So if you have a size 20 repair yard somewhere, but you would like to have a size 30 or 40, well, here's your chance. A lot of players will let you, a lot of opponents, I should say, will let you split that. You can definitely split it between two 15s. You can add a 15 to 2 different bases, increase 2 different repair yards by 15, and so forth. If your opponent agrees, you maybe even split that up more. That makes it more viable for the Allied players, because you have an Allied, I think, have a lot of like 20s and 30 size repair yards down in Australia and New Zealand. This lets you bump them up a little bit. Now, for Japan, you definitely don't want to put this in the home islands. There's no point. You have tons of repair yards there. The only place, I shouldn't say any only place, because that's limiting people's what they want to do. For me, I put a repair yard in truck. Either I put the full 30 in truck, or I split it at 15 in truck and 15 at Babel Dayab. That gives you. Truck, of course, is a nice repair yard down south because there's nothing nearby. If you're damaged in the South Pacific, you got to go all the way up to the Philippines or the home islands to get any kind of repair, or maybe over to Java. So that's a long way. You put one in truck, well, then you can repair right there in truck. And truck's a hard base to crack if you defend it and build it up right. So that's what I usually do. And then 7, 8, 9, and 10. Well, 7, 8, 9, well, I guess 7 and 8 are mostly for anyone. Lets you add 100K supply. You can buy 3 of those. They're only a point each, but there are a few stipulations. You cannot put them in Malaya or the Philippines. You can put them in Java, Sumatra, Borneo, or as a lot of people do, you put it in China. If you're the allies, one of China's biggest things is they have no damn supply. So there you go. You can add supply to China. Now there is a max per base. It's 20K times your port and airfield modifier. So you have a size 2 port, size 2 airfield. That's 4. You can only put up to 80K supply in there. As a side note, do not put more supply in island base or something like that where supply will not flow. That'll spoil. No point putting 100K supply at like Marcus, because it can only hold like 20K. All that supply is gone and go to waste. And then, of course, the next one is fuel. Same type of deal. You can put fuel wherever you want. You can buy 250,000 oil. If you want to just put oil in Australia, because they have refineries there and they start churning out fuel, there you go. Japan, I always buy the max of oil. Why not? I mean, you need oil. So you might as well buy it where you don't have to haul it, and it gives you a little more breathing room before you have to take all the bases in like Borneo. And then the next one, E10, E9 is only for Japan, really. I mean, allies could do it, but there's no real point. 250,000 resources. You can buy 6 of those, half point each. As Japan, I always buy 6 of these. That's 300,000 more resources. Or not, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm thinking 50,000. That's 1.5 million more resources. Or basically that gives you about 20 more, about 19 or 20 more days of production in Japan before you have to have enough resources there, you know, through the transportation. So it gives you more time. The next one, E10, accelerate engine availability. This one is only for Japan as well, since allies get what they get when they get it. So there are 3 points each. You accelerate the engine availability by 6 months. You can do it twice per engine max. Next one is add 250,000 heavy industry points. Max 3 on this, or a point each. I buy these usually, but I usually wait to the end to buy a lot of these 1-pointers. You see what kind of points I have left. Some of them, like the oil, adding the 50 oil bays, adding the resources. I always buy those for sure. But some of these other ones are kind of, we'll see where else I want to spend my points, and it depends on how many points you have. And then the next one is adding merchant or naval ship points into your pool. Depends on what scenario you play with. You may not have much of a pool. I know base scenario 2 that I just started the game in, you have 0 in both of those. No, I think you have 5,000, maybe 5,000 naval, but you have 0 merchant shipping. Which which means if you're running a negative on turn 1, you won't build ships. So I like to buy, I buy at least one of these. Usually I buy 2, and it's almost all going to naval. I usually put a couple thousand into merchant, as long as my opponent agrees that I can split it like that. Because it says 250 naval or merchant. It doesn't say you can split it. It doesn't say you can't, so you check with your opponent. They probably won't have a problem with it. If they do, then they're being real stickler to the rules, and you should do that back to them. The whole variant thing is a little give and take. So the more you give, the more you can take, to try to balance it out and be fair to everyone, because we're here to have fun. That is the economy side ones. That is I don't know. You spend less points here than you think you would, because there's much better places. It all depends on how many points you have too. Next is bases. There's only 3 things you can do to them. You can increase the potential airfield or port. If you're not sure what this is, when you look at a base, it's the number in the parentheses. It's the max that they can build up normally. So a max potential 4, which means once you go above size 4, you're paying extra time, extra supplies to build it out, and you can only go to potential plus 3. So max size 4 is actually will build out to a size 7. I spent surprisingly a bunch of points here, but you need to check with your opponent. It doesn't say you can't, but it doesn't say you can. I increased the potentials of bases I don't own yet. I look down the road which bases I want. Like, I will increase the airfield of truck to size 6, so I can build out to size 9, make it a horrendous base for the allies to have to take. I like to increase the port at Palembang. I don't own Palembang, so I need to check with my opponent, make sure they're okay with that. I increase that up so I can get that up, above a size 4. You get up to like a 6 or 7, it's way easier to get all that oil and fuel out of there. You'd be surprised what 1 or 2 points of port size can do. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, look in the manual. Under cargo loading and unloading, there's a whole chart in the book. Tells you how much they can load or unload in one turn per port size. Look at some where some of them jump. A couple of them are like, hey, it goes from like 4,000 to 8,000. Oh, big deal. But some will go from like 20,000 to like 40,000. You just doubled, and that's per day. So if your opponent will let you, you might want to look at increasing some of the port sizes and airfield sizes of bases you do not control. Think of it as to haul resources out, mostly the oil bases, and or increasing airfields for defensive purposes, because an airfield size 8 or 9 doubles your aviation support. So if you have 50 aviation support there, it becomes 100. That doubles the amount of planes you can have. A size 9 has no organization max on it, which means you can have as many units and air units there as you want. There is no limit. So that's useful as well. So that's the bases. Next is the air section. The first one, accelerate any aircraft by 1 month. This also applies to the allies. You can speed up when you get your planes, your bombers, your fighters. Most of my opponents go after all the fighters. Now, the most you can spend is 10 points on any one aircraft, any one model. But there are stipulations on this. It's 1 point per month, but there's a multiplication factor in here depending on how many engines the aircraft has, times 2 or times 4, and then what year you're moving it into. So if you're moving a plane from like January 43 into 1242, well, that's 1 month. But since you're going into 42, that's times 2, so that's 2 points. So you can see moving stuff, jumping years can get expensive. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be careful. Moving 1 month might not be enough. So you can't do it. You can't do 10. You can't do 10 months guaranteed. You can do 10 points. So you may make sure you pay attention to the math here. And then A2, delay aircraft production. This has nothing to do with Japan. This is purely for you allied players. You know how some aircraft will produce for like 6 months and then it's gone, and you like that aircraft, you want it longer. Well, for 2 points, you can delay that for 3 months per time you buy it. Now it's base cost times of 2 times the number of engines, so it can get expensive. But if you want some fighters for a little bit longer and so forth, you can do it. There is no max on this. You can delay them to forever if you have the points. Next one is your A3. That's adding in experience to your pilots for 1 year. Now this one gets a little tricky. This one is 4 points per year, and it's per nationality. Over here on the right, you'll see where it limits. Every like if you buy 1, 2, these are what you get for those different areas. So Japan, it's Army or a Navy, and then you can do China, Dutch, Filipino, and Soviet. That's one group. You could do the Commonwealth as a group. The U.S. Air Force is its own group, and then the Navy and the Marines is a separate group. So if you want Navy, Marines, and the Air Force, that's 2 different groups. You have to buy it twice. And you have to buy it per year because it only lasts for 1 year. Then, of course, you can increase the amount of pilot replacements once again per year. This is 2 points to add 100 pilots per month for the entire year. Split up kind of however you want, with the same kind of safeguards as up at the one above it. Next one, you can start adding aircraft. You could change the nationality from one of these other ones into a Commonwealth. So basically what that does, it allows other nationalities to use different aircraft. And then we go into adding air groups. Now, was it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? There's 2 different types here. One's a size 25 unit and one's a size 75 unit. You can do 2 of the 75s and 3 of the 25s max. They cost different amounts according to what year you want them in. And then, of course, you multiply it by engines and so forth. So if you want a size 75 air group added to your, battle line in July to December 42, that's 4 points base for a 1 engine. 8 for a 2 engine, 16 for a 4 engine. They come in with 75 planes, 15 reserves, and all the pilots are experienced 60. And they just appear at your home, one of your home ports. You can't have it like in the front lines. It just magically appears. So you want to spend these if you have the points they add, especially for Japan, to give you more air groups. But you want to weigh the costs and how quick you want them. Now, all the dates on these, you roll a die, go online, find a random number generator, whatever. There's 1,000 different sites and stuff and ways to do this. You just have to be honest. The nice thing is you cannot get anything earlier than January 42, and that's only a size 25, and that's only if you're lucky. You got a 1 out of 6 chance per time you buy this one to get it then. Then you come down here, you can cancel your withdrawal of any air squadrons. This is for both sides. It's a half a point per squadron. You want to be careful with this. If you cancel the withdrawal of a squadron that comes back later as a better squadron, it won't ever come back. Then you can change a permanent restricted squad to temporary restricted, which means you could go from not being able to buy a unit out to being able to buy a unit out. Then you can increase the replacement pools of various aircraft at game start, or any aircraft that arrives within 6 months. So it's 50. You get 51 or 2 engine planes, or 25 4 engines, and it's 2 points. You can buy max of once per model. And 16, add a convoy of injection of 50 aircraft to arrive at various times. The time and cost modifiers are over on the right-hand side. And then air defense devices, accelerate them like you do engines or aircraft by 6 months. So drop tanks, radars, whatever, things like that. Not aircraft, devices. Next one is change the upgrade path of a Dutch aircraft to a non-Dutch type. So your Dutch aircraft can upgrade to Marine aircraft or Commonwealth aircraft. Depends on whatever you want. You can lower the SR, service rating, of any aircraft by 1 There are requirements. You can't go below a 3. And it costs ×2 for a 4 engine. So you can, for like the B29s, I believe it started at 5. You can move that down to a 4 if you wanted to, but that's 10 points. And then 20, you can add training groups. This is very important for Japan, because the Allies can train off-map on off-map basis and get a huge bonus to their training. Japan does not have this. So Japan, you definitely want to be buying training point units if you can. They come with 0 aircraft. They cost 2 points for a size 50 air group. Max 2 of these per side, and usually your opponent will let you break that up if you want, like 2 25s or like 3 16s. I usually buy one for naval fighters, and then I take another one and split it between naval dive bombers and naval torpedo bombers, and they train faster in those units than they do in regular air groups. And then this one lets you move aircraft from like 45 to like 42. It's really, you gotta be careful. Even Andy says take great care with this. It's not worth the points. It has to be, both sides have to agree to it. So, and then that's all for the air. The next category is Navy. You'll be surprised how many points, especially as Japan, you want to buy. Now, be careful as Japan. Many people have said that they can edit the editor so that ships arrive for Japan as free. You put them into task forces. So far, I have not been able to prove that that is true. Every time we do that with multiple different people who say they can, we've done it, and you still pay for them. You still have to build those ships. So be careful adding a bunch of ships, because you have to pay for them. The Allies don't. So basically, you can, first one, allow your cancellation, cancel withdraw of any ships. Depends on what size they are, how much they cost. You can accelerate ship upgrades per ship. Like you can have ships that start the game or come when they arrive with better upgrades, but those cost on a per ship upgrade. And it's per ship per upgrade. So if you want to skip 2 upgrades, that you have to pay twice. And then adding new ships. It's all based on what size of the ship and when you want to add them. They're all pretty self-explanatory here. There's a little bit of separate rules for carriers by bringing them with no aircraft. They're a little bit cheaper. With no air squadrons at all on them, they come cheaper and so forth. That handles a bunch of this all the way down into 42. When stuff is very expensive. And 7, probably my favorite of all of these. Change a ship to another class of its type. Now this comes in as the base level of the ship with no upgrades. So you can't move it to the end game upgrade for your ships. You come in as the base level ship. Now you can get like a 43 or 44 ship in 41 with this option, because you're changing it to that class, and that class comes, it's not built to 44, but now you have it, but it comes with the base level upgrades. Now, there are some limitations. Capital ships can only be done to the same class, like carriers to carriers, battleships to battleships, and so forth. Cruisers to cruisers. Cruisers and CVLs can go. CVLs cannot go to CVs. That's not permitted. You can change their class to make them more useful, but you cannot change them completely. Destroyers can go to other destroyer classes. They can also go to APM, all of these types here. The one that I love the most, other than changing carriers to, so I like all my carriers being the same class, so I usually do that. This one right here, line 111 on this spreadsheet. You can change any ship not mentioned above. So if they're not, not a carrier, not an escort carrier, not a light carrier, not a battleship, not, cruisers and so forth, not destroyers or APDs and so forth. You can change any ship to pretty much any ship. You can change some of those worthless Japanese XAKLs to nice big fat AKEs, or to nice patrol boats, or bigger, more tankers, or you know, ARs, ADs, whatever you want, where you usually have to convert them, you do it and you have it on turn 1. If you pay attention in my other game I'm playing, my game against Helson, and go on the Discord, I have my list. I do a lot of magic with these that give me a lot of nice ships, like changing XAKLs. You know, they're pretty worthless to, say, LSDs. Japan doesn't even. I think Japan starts with 1 or 2 LSD, and we don't make any during the war. But they have they are like almost the best amphibious ship. Well, I convert like, you know, 40 or 50 of them. They're cheap, a quarter point each. And all of a sudden now I have enough LSDs to last me in the entire war. I really like that line a lot. Then you can add some experience to ships. This is half a point for 1 time per ship. Add 20 daylight and 20 night. You can move ship to another port. You cannot move from Pearl Harbor if you're doing a historic start. You can move a task force to another port. You cannot do it as well from Pearl. Basically, you can't move the battleships out of Pearl or so forth, so they can't be hit. That's the Allies can replace the dud rate of their torpedoes by 10%, a point each. Now later on, there's one to do it all at once. That's a little more. Leaves a little cheaper. But say you have a couple points left and you want to, you know, better torpedoes. Well, there you go. You can convert. This is for Japan. Convert existing normal task force of any type to a magic move task force. You can do it once, and it's 5 points. You can add float plane capacity to larger ships, 6,000 tons and up, which is cruisers and such. I suppose some merchants have them as well. You can increase the speed of the ship. You gotta be careful with this though, because it's a ship class. So you pay 0.25 per ship in the class. So if there's 100 ships in the class, you're paying 25 points to increase them all by 3 knots. Want to be careful with that one. Add 1,000 endurance to any ship class. Same thing, except it has a caveat. It's 0.1 per ship times number of ships, but the max is 6 points for the entire class. So if there's 100 ships, well, you pay 6 points and you get them all. Another one of my favorites is 121 here. Add more capacity to ships. Cargo, liquid, or troop capacity. 1,000 total between the 3. Split however you want. It's 0.1 again per ship. But you have to do the entire class. So 6 points to do an entire class. I always convert the Aiden XAKs for you Japan fans out there. There's like 190 of them or something. I pay 6 points and I add 1,000 capacity to them. It's huge. Then this one here is we feel a little expensive. Add 10 air capacity to carrier ships. It's once you can buy it per class, and you pay 1 point per ship in that class. So you gotta be careful with that one because it can add up a lot quick. And that is the naval side. Then we come into the other side. The other is pretty short. There's only 10 of them. Adding extra political points per day, 25 per day, max of 2. So you can add 50 political points to your side for each turn. Add 500 political points to you at the start of the game. 1 point each. There is no max. You can turn historic research off if you're Japan. 45 points. You can turn all withdrawals off. Technically for either side, but I'm not sure why Japan would ever want this. But that costs 60 points. You can turn working allied torpedoes on. It's 40 points. You can add some new leaders into the database with specific stats. You can promote some leaders. You can do the different colleges. You can add 50 stat points to different leaders and so forth. According to, not many people use these. I suppose if you really got into it, you would, but I have never done it. But that doesn't mean other people wouldn't. I believe Andy likes to use these to make some of his leaders really good. And then Top Gun School, you can add 5 pilots with 70 stats across the board. So that is the other category. Mostly for me, I buy the political points, and that's it. And then we come into land, which I believe is the last section. Yep, there's 15 of these. First one, increased land device replacement rate by 25. This works for pretty much everything on the Allied sides, because that's how you guys get all your stuff. Can also work for the Japanese side, but you gotta be careful. Not everything works with the replacement rate on the Japanese side. A lot of the units that are like split between both sides, like support, it's generic. Both sides use support. Motorized support, I found out, does not work. You put that in, you won't ever get them. So you want to make sure you test. That's another thing. Once you've gone in, spent all your points, gone into the editor, and made all your changes, load up some games, do a couple turns, make sure what you bought and paid for is actually what was entered into the database, because unless you know what you're doing, you can easily make a mistake. And two, that it's working how you think it will. And then next one is accelerate land devices by 6 months. Oh, you want that tank a little bit earlier? Well, 2 points, it'll accelerate by 6 months. You want that gun a little earlier? You want those squads earlier? There you go. You can add, L3, 4, 5, and 6? Lets you add additional units to your order of battle. I spent a lot of points in here, a lot more than I thought I would, as Japan, because I think one of the things Japan has a lack of troops earlier in the war. Now come 44, 45, they get a bunch, but they're restricted. But for all the ambitions that Japan had, you would think they would have pumped out more units. Then of course, these are all based on a division size unit and when it arrives. So if you want a little smaller, there's different modifiers over here to make how much you pay. If you want to add a reinforcement convoy, it's in here. If you want to add a headquarters or engineer unit, it's different than the ones above because those are a little more important. You pay per devices and so forth. If you want to change permanent restricted units to a temporary restricted, once again, permanent you cannot buy out, temporary you can. So it opens up some of the units in in Japan, of course, or Manchuria, or in the U.S. or in Australia. It lets you buy them out to move them somewhere else. You can cancel or withdraw of any ground unit. It's per unit basis. So if you don't cancel them all, then you can pick and choose. You can add one hard attack or one soft attack to any device in the editor. So it's 3 points per thing, max of 15 points spent in this category, but across all devices, but no more than 9 points on one device, so no more than 3. So that you can do a lot of stuff with that if you think about it. Next one is add 50 aviation support to any base force on the map. So it has to start on the map, it's not a reinforcement. So you would add it to the base force itself and its TOE. Those are half a point each. That's a nice one for Japan because we're short on aviation support the entire war. And then, of course, it goes with L12, which lets you add engineers. Same thing, we're short on engineers. You can add 50 engineering squads or 10 engineering vehicles to any base force on the map. I like to use engineers because they're easier to move about. 50 engineers and 10 engineering vehicles, they are identical in terms of building capacity. It's 5 to 1. But engineering vehicles, bulldozers and so forth, unload like vehicles. Engineers unload like troops and load that way. And you can fly them in and out where you can't fly vehicles. So they are more mobile. You can change the upgrade path of land devices to other land devices of the same type. So artillery to artillery. Anti-tank to anti-tank, squads to squads, fighting vehicles to fighting vehicles. You can't move a squad to like an anti-tank gun. Then the same thing with anti-air for your flak guns. And then some of the flak stuff is based. You can't go from like a 1,000 7.7 millimeter Japanese gun to a big one that reaches across half the world. You have to stay within the same category. Under 5,000, 5 to 10, and 10,000 and above. So there's 3 categories you have to stay within them. You can't take a little baby, 1,000 max ceiling gun, put it up to the 20,000 max ceiling gun. Then last one is changing a single line on a single line on a single unit to a device of the same type. So a squad to a squad. A gun to a different gun, and so forth. You pay per line according to the size. That's for one unit, not a bunch of units. So it's not like a TOE. It's just a single, and one unit got some upgrades. So be careful, because if you lose that unit, you lost those points. So that's basically Andy's variants in a nutshell. If you come over onto Jochen Heiden's Discord and hop on my channel, I'll gladly share the spreadsheet with you. This is the latest version from Andy that I know of. Every now and then he upgrades this, modifies it by what people say, and discussions, changes prices, adds some things to it. You can also add anything you want on this as long as your opponent agrees. So that's it for this video. If you liked going over these with me, please go ahead and hit the like button. If you enjoy the series of tutorials I'm doing, please go ahead and subscribe. Until the next one, you guys have a great day.